Welcome to Buffalo Pregame, your source for live Buffalo football discussion, news, analysis, opinions, and more. Presented by ASM Publications and Bills Digest.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Buffalo Pregame, the latest episode on this lovely Friday afternoon. We'll typically do these shows on Saturday, but I have some plans on Saturday, so wanted to get this in before the weekend hits and get the people more Bills coverage with training camp right around the corner. I'm your host, Alex Brasky, here for Bills Digest and ASM Publications. On today's show, we will break down the Bills' offensive and defensive line with Jerry Ostroski, and we'll also set expectations for the Bills with Reid and Zach Sheldon, a.k.a. Maniac, of 26 Shirts and Trainwreck Sports, respectively, as those two have their hands fully in the pot in terms of Mafia Con. They have been working hard to put on quite the production this year, so we wanted to bring both of them on before our live spot at 2:45 p.m. next Saturday at Seneca 1. It will be myself, it will be Derek Kramer, it will be Zach Jones from WGR. So looking forward to a good time at Seneca 1 next weekend, and we'll be bringing you a few shows leading up to that, this one being the first of those shows. So I'd like to thank you for joining me in my new venture, which has allowed me to place more of my focus on Buffalo's two favorite teams, the Bills and Sabres. I'll continue to provide updates on the NFL, NHL, and more via daily articles, podcasts, videos, and more right here on the podcast, as well as the Buffalo Pregame Substack and Bills Digest, the official magazine of the Buffalo Bills, which is also a presenting sponsor of this show. So we appreciate all that Bills Digest has done, and we continue to forge ahead with Buffalo Pregame as well. So thank you for indulging my self-promotion as always. We're getting set to, like I said, break down the Bills' offensive and defensive line with Jerry Ostroski. Where else would you rather be? Right here, right now, seems like a good place to me. Let's kick things off. And before we get into the offensive line, defensive line breakdown, I just want to touch on something that I released on my Buffalo Pregame Substack, a training camp tip sheet, your guide to experiencing training camp in Pittsford and the Rochester area and on site at St. John Fisher University. There's a lot to do, more so than just watching practice and following your favorite players and your favorite positional battles. So I wanted to give the people kind of what I've experienced at training camp, covering it the past many years, and being from the Batavia area allows me to get out to Buffalo and Rochester whenever I feel like it. I don't know if I got the directions right, but that's okay. It really is not meaningful for this exercise. So let's get into the training camp tip sheet. My first bit of advice to everybody: just enjoy the show. Don't take things too seriously. There is a little bit of hustle and bustle getting to and from practice, and it can be difficult finding a good spot along the fence or in the stands to get a good view of the practice and everything you want to see. There's a lot of walking around in terms of going from one practice field to the other, if you'd like to do that. And also, it can get a little bit heated at training camp. It can get hot, those July summer days, those August summer days. So pack some sunscreen and pack your patience, especially if you're going to bring young children. I see a lot of strollers each time I'm at training camp, a lot of young kids on their parents' back. So if that's going to be you, bring your patience with you, because it's a great experience, but there are times where it does test your patience with long days in the heat, a tough vantage point. Sometimes it's tough to gain a good vantage point along the fence and stuff like that. But plenty of refreshments there for you to have to stay hydrated. Bathrooms as well. The St. John Fisher staff does a great job as hosts. So as long as you pack your patience and you enjoy the show, I don't see how you can't have a good time at Bills training camp. And one of the few downsides of training camp is the lack of parking on campus at St. John Fisher, with on-site parking reserved for players, coaches, members of the organization, Camp University employees, Media fans are forced to find other options, whether it be in the surrounding area on front lawn, some people selling parking as they do to and from Bills games along Big Tree Road, and obviously the surrounding area as well, Abbott Road and everything. So make sure you find a good spot there, or you can park, I believe, at Pittsford Sutherland High School. That is the location of the shuttle buses that the Bills offer to and from the stadium. The shuttle costs $1 as far as last year's information was concerned. And with each bus is accessibility for guests with disabilities as well. So if that is of concern to you, the shuttle bus may be, the way to go. Already talked about the potential independent parking. And now let's move on to some more enjoyable aspects beyond the gates at training camp. There's plenty of good food and drink and other fun to be had in the Flower City. Rochester's a great place to be, obviously, especially in the summertime when you get some good quality Western New York weather. You got to get the garbage plate. Buffalo has chicken wings. Rochester has the garbage plate. The Rock signature dish is really a unique experience for anybody that hasn't had it. If you enjoy typical 4th of July barbecue food, burgers, hot dogs, and everything like that, throw a little bit of meat sauce on there if you'd like. That's the specialty, a little spicy meat sauce. Maybe some raw onion. I don't know if you could stomach that, but that certainly suits my fancy. And then you have the ketchup and mustard as well, some relish. It's a great experience to have with the meat and the condiments over a fresh bed of, let's say, home fries or mac salad, both. Maybe throw some baked beans in there as well. So it's really a unique and delicious experience. And if you go for my money, the best garbage plate and hot dog, for that matter, in Rochester for your money is at Dogtown on Monroe Avenue. It is just simply delicious, fresh made sides and the perfect meat sauce, to top it all off. So they also have a variety of creative hot dog combinations. So be sure to try Dogtown and don't skip the meat sauce. It can be a little fearful for some people to dive into the meat sauce, but at least get it on the side. Maybe do a dunk or two in there before you pour it all over. It is absolutely delicious. And I don't want to take up too much of your time with the tip sheet, but one more kind of food and drink bit of advice that I have: enjoy a trip down Park Ave. There's plenty of good spots on Park Ave. It can get a little bit crowded on Friday, Saturday nights, but Giants, if you'd like a nice sandwich, or if you get out there for breakfast, Giants is a nice place to go. And then if you're looking for more of a nighttime spot, Vern's right down the street. A nice tomato pie, a nice steak, a nice cocktail. Vern's is a really, really nice place to go. Giants, a classic Greek diner. So you kind of get both of the ends of the spectrum with those two places. Dorado right next door. That's another nice place, Mexican style food. So make sure you enjoy a trip down Park Ave and get a garbage plate. Those are really the two bits of advice that I have for you. There's Strong Museum if you have young children. If you'd like to go there and have a nice day of fun in addition to training camp, you can visit the George Eastman Museum if you're into that type of history. Over 400,000 photographs, $22 for adults for entry. And just soak up the sun. Enjoy the day outside with your friends, with your family. If you're going by yourself, there's plenty of nice golf around the training camp facility there. So enjoy the day, enjoy your trip to training camp. And now let's move on to our guest, beginning with Jerry Ostroski. And it was interesting, our conversation, talking with a former Buffalo Bill. He really provides a unique perspective. And it was good to talk to him, particularly about the Bills' offensive and defensive line. The offensive line, one of the strengths of the team. The defensive line, one of the weaknesses, I should say, of the team, especially on the defensive side of the ball in particular, when you look at what they brought in this offseason, looking to address some holes. So wanted to get Jerry in here. A good day to do so. And without further ado, we bring the big man in from the Overreaction Pod. All right, here with Jerry Ostroski of the Overreaction Pod and the Big O Show. Grateful for his presence here on the podcast and bring a lot of knowledge. Former Buffalo Bill, a longtime Buffalo Bill at that, an impressive career, and now in the media sphere, spreading his knowledge on those two shows. Also, Bill Squad with Joe Marino and Jeremy. Why don't we start with that? How did that come about, Jerry? How did you, Jeremy, and Joe, three titans of the Bills media sphere, join forces?
Well, it's you know how this whole thing goes right now. I mean, Joe Marino is he's the quintessential star of Bill's content creation, right? Joe's been putting out unbelievable content for a long, long time, and obviously he's built a big following and a really reputable and good show on the Locked On network. And Locked On decided that they looked at algorithm. You know how this whole thing goes. It's all about algorithms, and they decided that there is a big thing as far as the 30-minute show, but they had information out there that people wanted a longer view. They wanted more of a panel style view. So Locked On came to Joe and asked him to put this together. And, I guess Jeremy and I were his first two draft picks to do this. So it worked out. It's been absolutely awesome. I really, really enjoy the time with those two. Right now we're going Mondays and Thursdays. But when the season starts, that Thursday show will turn into a post-game show. So it's been a great experience, and to work with really, really awesome guys has been fun.
Yeah, that's great. And I've certainly learned a lot listening to you, Joe, and Jeremy over the years. So to have all three of you come together, very valuable for everybody looking to learn more about the Bills and the NFL as a whole, as the conversation tends to spread a little bit. But why don't we jump into some Bills talk here, and specifically offensive line. I know you're not pigeonholed to that, but obviously that's what you're most familiar with. And specifically Aaron Kromer. What makes Aaron Kromer so effective as an offensive line coach? We've heard a lot from him this offseason. He was on one of the national podcasts, and others also really singing his praises as somebody who can kind of dial his coaching style to a specific player. So could you expand on that and really tell us what makes Aaron Kromer such an effective offensive line coach?
Well, I think the biggest thing about Aaron is what you talked about a second ago, is the fact that he coaches to the person. He doesn't coach a system. He's not super rigid as far as you get some offensive line coaches that are way overly technical. They force their system on every player, and they don't have that ability to adapt to guys' styles of play. Kromer does that. He's really, really good at evaluating what he has and letting those guys do the things that they do best. Dion Dawkins yesterday, there was a clip out there. He's at OL Masterminds right now, which is the offensive line version of Tight End University, right? And Dion was talking about how he just tries to simplify everything. And I think that's a microcosm of Kromer in general. I'm not saying that what they do is not, complex and good, but what I'm saying is football is still football. And I think when we get so technical with the game, we freeze players' minds up to where they're thinking too much. And why are these guys in the NFL to begin with? Because they are big, physical, athletic people. And if you don't allow them to do that because they're constantly thinking about things, you lose what makes them great. And I think that Kromer does that. And then the other thing is, like you talked about, the individualized coaching, allowing a guy like Dion Dawkins the freedom to do what he does. And then you look at the other side of the line in Spencer Brown, where as technique sound as anybody in the league right now. If you take Spencer Brown's film, you can go to any clinic in America and use his film to teach clinic to offensive line coaches. Dion, not so much. But what Dion does is works great for him. It's like when we were kids. I don't know if you remember the great Rod Carew that played baseball, had the most ludicrous batting stance of all time. And what did every kid in the neighborhood do when we're playing wiffle ball? We're trying to be Rod Carew, right? Yeah. It doesn't work for 99.9% of America, but it works for Rod Carew. And that's kind of how Dion is. He does his thing, and he's unbelievable at it. He's a top tackle in the league. But you can just see the difference. So if you really want to look at it example-wise, watch Spencer, watch Dion, totally different styles, but still doing the same thing. And that's what Kromer allows them to do.
Yeah, different sizes, different styles along the offensive line. You really have to shift the way you coach, and not all coaches do that. As you said, some are really stuck in their ways and they try to force it on people. But you look at Dion, with that snatch trap that he's really perfected, and then, like you said, you look at Spencer Brown, and I want to touch on those two next. What's allowed those two to become so indispensable on the opposite side of each other on the Bills offensive line. You look at Dion, and he's always kind of been at the forefront in terms of one of the Bills' best offensive linemen. But I believe over the past few seasons, he's taken his game to another level, approaching all-pro level. And then you look at Spencer Brown at the beginning of his career. There were problems with penalties and this, that, and the other thing. He seems to have smoothed things out as well. You mentioned the technique. Has that been what it's been for both of those players as they've risen in the ranks a bit, both throughout the National Football League and on the Bills roster?
Well, I think it's a couple things. And as far as Dion goes, it's not so much the coaching on the field. It's what Sean McDermott has allowed in the locker room and in that team in general, which is what I think is so impressive of what McDermott's done, because he is an old school guy. He's kind of spanned across both eras. He allows his players to be individuals within a team concept. And if you watch Dion off the field and on the field is he's an enigma, right? I mean, showing up to NASCAR races, he's got no shirt on. I mean, it's just it's amazing.
He's basically like a WWE superstar already.
I always say that, like, if there's therapists out there that want to teach people how to just be themselves, show film of Dion, because Dion does not care, right? Dion does whatever he wants. But McDermott allows that. And when you have a player that walks through your locker room door and he's happy, he's going to play happy. And that's the way I see Dion, man. He's allowed to be himself, and he's an incredible talent. And you are right. He's a top 5 tackle in the league. Then you got Spencer Brown. I think the biggest problem with Spencer when he came into the league was he was hurt. He had the back issues. Right. You know, he played at 1AA or FCS Northern Iowa, where a guy like him in Northern Iowa probably didn't have to be as technique sound because he wasn't playing some of the talent that other guys play every week. But I'm not taking anything away from FCS football, because my oldest boy coaches offensive line now at Northern Iowa, and my other son transferred for his last year to Northern Iowa. So they play good football, but you understand what I'm getting at, right?
Yes.
But Spencer had the injuries. He's a tall guy, and when you have back problems as a tall guy, it's debilitating. That training staff, medical staff, weight room got him healthy again, got him to where he could train again, which then allowed his technique to come out. And I think that's the biggest thing about Spencer, the maturation process and just getting his body ready to play NFL football. And now both of those guys are, you know, I talked about this last night a little bit to some people. You know, we're in this kind of I don't want to say panic stricken, but there's a concern amongst the fan base about the inside guys, about Connor McGovern and Torrance. Can we afford him? Will they be here?
Sure.
I'm not so sure with those two guys outside that we can't find guys to play inside and be just fine if they aren't here, because they solidify that line so much. So yeah, they're very, very important pieces. The contract extension with Spencer this offseason was amazing to get him locked up for the money they did. Dion's not going anywhere. So they're set for quite a while up front.
And to have the quarterback to go along with that, you really have 3 key pieces on offense figured out. I know the skill positions are kind of what everyone's looking at. You look at a recent ESPN ranking, ranks their skill group 28th in the league offensively. So I think there's still questions there. But when you have it figured out up front, that can really cover up a lot of holes offensively. And you mentioned O'Cyrus Torrence. I think from year 1 to year 2, he had such a phenomenal rookie season that really anything was going to be a step back, but maybe more than an incremental step back for O'Cyrus Torrence in year 2. How did you see his second season, and what do you see from him moving forward on that offensive line?
I think O'Cyrus Torrence is what he is. He's a big mauling guard. He does have some issues sometimes with real athletic defensive linemen, especially right at the snap. But if he gets his hands on you, you're not going anywhere. So I think that as he matures at that spot, he'll learn technique to handle those speed guys, because it takes a bit of time. You know, all players have to understand when they come to the line of scrimmage, they know the snap count, they know the play, they know the form, you know, they know the alignment of the defense. Now you've got to understand in your mind, which was, you know, something, and you might have heard me talk about this before, we call situational awareness. You got to know where you can't get beat, where your help isn't. You know, there's a doomsday spot where you can't let that guy get to. And as he understands that more and more, he'll play even better. So I don't have any problems with it. I thought his second year was good. Like I said, usually if he had issues, it was speed type guys right off the bat, but they'll take care of that. And, a third-year guy, and I know this sounds crazy, but there still is maturity body-wise. I mean, there's college shape, and then, there's NFL shape and understanding the season and how long it is and taking care of yourself. And, he'll learn that even more as well. So, no, tremendously happy with him. But, like I talked about earlier, if he is to go, because I would imagine by the time he's ready to get another contract, he's going to command top guard salary in the NFL. And is that something that we can afford with a salary cap that I think we have right around $100,000 a room right now? So obviously there's going to be some considerations there. Then you got McGovern. We've proven we could take a guy like David Edwards, who, by the way, is no slouch. He won a Super Bowl in LA with the Rams, but still not probably one of the top 10, 15, 20 guards in the league, but he's doing just fine. So you start looking at it. Can you piece dudes together inside that can do the same things without spending that kind of money? I guess we're going to find out pretty soon.
And with so many young players up and down the roster, these are the quote unquote good problems that you start running into. You can't pay everybody, but with some good moves on the free agent market, you can typically plug and play, especially like you said, if you have those cornerstone pieces taken care of, as the Bills do up front. I think they could probably withstand some comings and goings more so than they could in past seasons. How about we flip over to the defensive line? Who excites you most out of the rookie trio? TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, Landon Jackson. Three different style players. Obviously, the first two on the inside, Deion Walker and TJ Sanders. Walker, a massive player. TJ Sanders maybe a little bit smaller, but with great speed, burst, and acceleration off the line. And then you have Landon Jackson, a mountain of a man on the outside, and somebody who maybe with some refinement of his mechanics, his pass rushing skills, could be a top-tier pass rusher in this league alongside Greg Rousseau for years to come.
I think all three of them are interesting in different areas. You look at Deion Walker, I think he's probably the highest ceiling guy out of all of them. I mean, you don't know if you can get him healthy, and now you have a guy that's that size. And if you watch his college film, his 23 film was, I think, more indicative of what he can be as opposed to his 24 film, because he was fighting the back issue all last season. If you can get him to 23 film and stay healthy, I mean, you might have stolen somebody at that spot. So he's an incomplete as far as evaluation goes. I think TJ Sanders is the guy that can be your big play splash guy. Yeah. I think he has that athletic ability inside to win right away at the snap of the ball, make big plays, get negative tackles behind the line of scrimmage. That's, I think, his going to be MO. I don't think you're going to see him just sitting there and take on double team after double team after double team and be that kind of anchor dude. He's going to be a slasher. He's going to be a negative play guy. And then you got Landon Jackson, who I think kind of is more like you said, he's like a Rousseau. I think he's going to be a really solid, productive pro. I don't know about his splash ability like I think that TJ Sanders has, but as far as being where he's supposed to be, making the plays he's supposed to make, motor guy, smart guy, I think that was a tremendous pick as well and fits really well with what the Bills do. So all three guys I think are going to be good players for Buffalo. They're all in different areas. I think they all kind of complement each other. And, I guess you could say this, if there's one thing that we still are missing, especially because of the cap, if they consider trading Daquan Jones or doing that, we really don't have that true one technique, but I'm not sure they care about that. I don't know if we're going to play with Ryan Nielsen showing up now being the defensive line coach. I don't know if we're going to see that pure one anymore that can take up a couple of gaps and hold up a center and guard. I think it's going to be more of a get in the defensive backfield, make big plays, and try to cause turnovers, which his team has done really, really well over the last 10 seasons.
Yeah, we saw Joe Marino's stats that he posted yesterday. They've really been one of the lone teams in the league that have been able to sustain that high turnover rate year after year. It's not always something that you can rely on, but the Bills have been able to rely on that. And we saw from TJ Sanders during the offseason program, no pads on for the offensive and defensive line, and it's really limited contact, but you could see the get off. And he bursted into the backfield a few times, got his hands on footballs, and nearly came down with an interception, if I recall correctly. So I'm really excited about him. One of my bold predictions on the Buffalo Pregame Substack was TJ Sanders will lead interior defensive linemen on the Bills in sacks this year. Obviously, Ed Oliver, a player who showed high upside in that regard a couple of years ago, came on strong at the end of last season. But I'm really excited how TJ Sanders fits into this rotation. And then you look at the outside, and let's move to Greg Rousseau. What's it going to take for him to take the next step? You mentioned Ryan Nielsen. He's got his fingerprints all over this defensive line. Marcus West, still the defensive line coach in name, but if you watch those offseason practices, you could see Ryan Nielsen really having his voice ring out loudly to these defensive linemen. And I'm looking for Greg Rousseau to become that finisher that the Bills need. I'm not sure if he ever can become that consistent 10-plus sack guy, but I respect the pass rush win rate, and I respect his ability to stop the run, but the Bills need a finisher come January, and I'm looking for Greg Rousseau to take that next step. Do you see that within him? What's it going to take for him to get there?
I think Rousseau is one of the better, well-rounded defensive ends in the league. And I think you're very astute in the fact when you say that I don't know if he ever can be that big-time sack player. That's not what he is. That's really not what he is. That's not how our defensive ends play in this defense. They're more contained rushers. They don't really have a two-way go. When I talk about a two-way go, what makes a lot of pass rushers tough to play against is guys that can rush inside and outside. They get freedom from the D coordinator and the calls to where they can have freedom to rush however they want. It's kind of hard nowadays with the football that we play and the mobility of the quarterbacks to just go ahead and take a defensive end and let him rush inside, hop B gap, and next thing you know, quarterback's outside running for first downs. So you see the style of play that the Bills, have at defensive end, which is compression style rushers. What I'd like to see out of Greg is the same thing I like to see out of Keon Coleman, is him to embrace what he is, which is a big physical defensive end. Let's play that way. I find it funny that guys that are blessed with size want to try to turn into speed dudes, and speed dudes want to try to turn into power guys. Take what God gave you, embrace it, and make it the best. And, that's what I'd like to see out of Rousseau. I want to see him play more physical on the pass rush, more bull rush, more compression stuff, and quit trying to be so much of a, jump around speed guy, because that's not what he does. He's a length guy, and a lot of his sacks are going to always come from pressure in the middle. And I think that's why you saw the franchise go ahead and take the likes of TJ Sanders and try to, increase that pressure in the middle with him and Ed Oliver and the likes, because when you get that quarterback flushed, you're rushing C gap all the time, which is outside. You move the quarterback outside. Rousseau's length allows him to get, guys on the ground and all that stuff. So if there's anything that Rousseau can do differently, embrace your size, be more of a power player, power rusher, and then go from there.
And final question, we didn't touch on Joey Bosa much, but we'll get you back on later and we'll talk all Joey Bosa. But how about Ed Oliver? What did you see from him last season that maybe led to a step back? He had 9.5 sacks in 2023 last year, dropped down to where he had been throughout his career, much more around the 3 to 4 range. I think he finished with 3. And toward the end of last season, after he was really challenged, I think, publicly by the fans and the media, he came out, answered some tough questions in a media scrum very confidently, and went on to have a successful end of the season. But that slow start from him, I think, lingered a little bit in terms of that sack production. Still hit the quarterback 10-plus times and was still in the backfield, like I said, pretty regularly down the stretch of the season. But his overall production took a dip. What does he need to return to form this year?
Ed has and always will be a twitch guy. I watched Ed play all of his college football at Houston. Houston was in the same league as Tulsa, so I got to see Ed play a lot live in Tulsa and all of that. So I'm very familiar with his style of play. I don't think anybody realizes. I think that hamstring lingered all season last year.
Yeah,
I really do. And when you take a twitchy dude and a speed guy, and you take away what makes him great, which he has a lower body injury, that causes problems. Ed's never going to really off the bat overpower anybody. He's going to use his twitch and his speed to set stuff up. Then he'll win with the bull rush and things like that. So I think the biggest thing for Ed Oliver is just health. If he's healthy this season, he's going to be back to the old Ed Oliver. If he's not healthy, then we might have issues. So that's the biggest thing to me. I don't think it's kind of like Dalton Kincaid. After the season, all of a sudden we find out really just how beat up he was. Ed missed some games with the hamstring. I think it lingered all season long, and I think that's why you saw the production go down, because while a 75, 80% Ed Oliver is better than, 90% of the guys in the league, it's still, he's not full strength, and it still leads to, some, reduction in production. So I didn't mean to make that rhyme. That was cool.
Great.
Reduction in production.
That's like a new podcast name. That's the next spinoff of Locked On Reduction in Production.
I like it. I think we should do it.
We should. Maybe we'll make it a spinoff of Buffalo Pregame. But Jerry, great perspective as always. Like I said, I appreciate listening to you on the Overreaction Pod, and now with the Locked On Bills squad. Why don't you tell people what you have coming up on the Overreaction Pod? I know that Joe Miller and I think John Fina are going to be at Mafia Con.
Yeah, Miller and Fina are going to be at Mafia Con. I guess John's got a little more freed up schedule than I do. I'll be up there in August for a week, leading up to the Jim Kelly golf tournament. So hopefully I'll get to go by the facility and watch some practice. Have not done that in quite some time, so I'm kind of looking forward to that, trying to get that set up. But we'll be on the air Sunday night for an Overreaction show, and then John started his show back up on Mondays, which is Off Tackle with John Fina. I'm of course on Wednesday nights at 8, and then once we get closer to the season, we'll bring all of our shows back in, and I'm sure we'll have you on a couple of times on the Beat Show, which we appreciate your time with us. But Alex, we appreciate you, man. You do a great job. Always you're the first go-to as far as practice reports for me. You're very, very thorough. You give great information, and thank you. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for coming on our shows.
You got it, Jerry. I appreciate the time, and I'm sure that we'll see you soon, my friend.
All right, sounds good.
Brief technical difficulty there. My apologies, but very, very thankful for Jerry coming on and spreading his knowledge of the offensive defensive line. It's something that I am not that well versed on. So bringing him in, gaining his perspective, and really projecting what to expect this season, I think very, very valuable stuff from Jerry. And before we get to our next couple of hosts, we brought up Mafia Con at the end of that conversation. We'll get more into it with Del Reid and Zach Sheldon, here in a second. But I want to remind everybody, please subscribe to Buffalo Pregame with Alex Brasky on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, along with the Buffalo Pregame Substack and Bills Digest, the official publication of the Buffalo Bills. You can subscribe to Bills Digest by visiting billsdigest.com. The others, just log on to YouTube, search Alex Brasky, log on to Substack and search Alex Brasky or Buffalo Pregame, and you'll find our stuff, complete coverage of training camp and much, much more. Also spreading our wings into Sabres coverage as well. We had an episode last week with Chris Parker, the Bulldog from WGR, and Walt of the Sabermetrics pod. So if you would like to kind of get some more information on the comings and goings with the Sabres, is Bo Byram on his way to be traded? Be sure to backtrack and find that episode as well. But we'll bring in our next guest here, Del Reid of 26 Shirts, the really founder of Mafia Con, and Zach Sheldon has come along with his marketing group, and they've really taken it to the next level. And we're excited to be there on July 19th, I believe. Yeah, the 19th, next Saturday at 2:45. Myself, Derek Kramer, and Zach Jones of WGR. So looking very much forward to that. And without further ado, here is Del Reid to talk Mafia Con. All right, I'd like to thank Del Reid for joining me of 26 Shirts and everything Mafia Con, coming up Saturday, July 19th, the second annual Mafia Con. 8 days, 9 hours, 59 minutes, and now 28, 27, 26, the countdown on BuffaloMafiaCon.com. So it's coming on, and it's coming on very quickly, Del. Yeah. And I'd like to thank you for joining me to tell the people all about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to chat it up. We had you there last year, and you're going to be back again this year. So very excited to see you again in real life. Too many of our interactions are digital. So
Right.
give you a real life fist bump.
Right, face to face, get flesh to flesh. Not too much flesh though.
No,
But Mafia Con, July 19th, 2025, really running all day. Entry tickets are required. You also need autograph tickets for the many Bills players that are expected to be in attendance. You got Ray Davis, Cole Bishop, Max Hairston among them. Player appearances, live pods, vendors. So much going on at Mafia Con, and it's a great gathering place for Bills Mafia to kind of come together and, like you said, see each other. Sometimes you don't see each other as much during the off season. You get back together with your fan groups during the season. So this is kind of a good off season meet before training camp and to reset the batteries. So why don't you tell the people about really the highlights of Mafia Con from your perspective? What makes it so exciting?
Yeah. Last year I kept telling everybody this is a proof of concept. This is a proof of concept. Trying to, kept it small and careful and very, I don't get that excuse this year. So we kind of have to bring it, right? So we upgraded from West New York Heroes, which was awesome. They're an amazing partner. We're still supporting them with this year's effort. They do great work. Very graciously hosted us last year in their facility. But we've moved up to Seneca 1 in downtown Buffalo, tallest building in Buffalo. And we're going to be right there on the lobby level at the front of the building. You'll be able to see out from the vendor area, see out all of downtown. It's really great setup. So excited to be working with Seneca 1. As you mentioned, TSC will be bringing several players there. There's going to be 6 rookies who are making their first, public Buffalo appearance in Buffalo. So that's going to be really cool. Obviously, Ray Davis, some might say he has a larger role on deck in the future for the Buffalo Bills. Who knows? But he'll be there. Cole Bishop was with us last year. He's back again this year. Very excited. TSC is a great partner, and they're able to bring those players in, and it's a huge asset. On top of that, we've got like 30 different vendors all over the place in terms of what they offer. I really wanted to make sure that this was something where you're not going to go there and you're going to get like, just everybody selling, T-shirts. Of course, we'll take care of that for you. But like, you don't want it to be like, so it's the same thing over and over and over again. So we have a really diverse offering of the different vendors and everything in that area. We're going to have live podcasting all day long. Thanks to, Bruckman Media. They're the ones that actually produce, my podcast, the Mafia Family Ties. So they're going to be running that whole thing. We're going to have a stage, much more professional setup than what we had last year. All you guys podcasting were great, real gracious. I didn't know we didn't have the best setup there. We basically gave you a folding table, and then as the day got hotter and hotter, I know a lot of the podcasters were actually doing it out in the courtyard because it was actually cooler outside than inside. But so they're going to run that whole area. We're working with the team that did the Unbelievable movie a couple years ago. That's going to be showing twice free of charge in Seneca 1's theater area. We're working with Seneca 1 for the food hall. That's going to be open. We're going to have a ton of different Buffalo fare. Right next to that is going to be what we're calling our family fun zone. And that's going to have face painting for the kids. It's going to have a balloon twister. We're going to have different yard games and stuff available in that area. And we're working with Brody Wheeler, professional photographer. And we're going to be doing, thanks to M&T's sponsorship of this area, with the photo booth and everything, free family photos. You can take a whole group photo with, by a professional photographer. So it'll be a fun photo booth type thing that we have going as well too. And great sponsors, West Her, they're our primary sponsor. Just like last year, they do so much for us at 26 Shirts and now Mafia Con. So West Her is a huge part of it. We're also working with, I mentioned M&T Bank a few minutes ago, Highmark, and also Bank on Buffalo. We're helping support our efforts. So very grateful to all of these people that are making it happen. And we are really excited to bring all of, Buffalo football fandom, all angles that I could think of. If I'm forgetting one, let me know. I'll work into next year. But every angle I could think of into this event.
Yeah, it's really a one-stop shop. You get everything you need, the podcasting, the players, even some well-known super fans will be there. You got Bills Elvis coming, Pinto Ron, Hannibal Lecter, and many, many more. And you're amongst that group as well. How did this all get started? Was it kind of just a love child from fans, you and other super fans kind of discussing year by year how to get together during the off season, how to bring the whole fan base together? Why don't you tell us about the genesis of this event and how you were able to kind of bring it all together? I know you're making it bigger and better this year. You mentioned the media group that's assisting you, but how did it start? Go from its humble beginnings last year and then kind of progress into what you expect it to be this year?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 years ago, I think it was after COVID, so it must have been like 4 years ago. My buddy Mike Sullivan, the Kick is Good on Twitter, he reached out and said, "How come you haven't done a Mafia Con event yet?" And I was like, "How come no one's done a Mafia Con?" So, because I've seen in the past, like the Chicago Blackhawks, they have a fan convention that the team puts on every year. Really cool. And I was like, why don't we ever have that stuff? But then, think about it. And then when somebody actually says the name Mafia Con, it starts, Mike's a great guy, huge idea, man, just spitfiring idea after idea after idea after idea, which can get crazy. But, so, he suggested that like in 21, I think. And then, kind of put it off every, like, oh, maybe we'll do that next year. Oh, maybe we'll do that next year. And then finally 2024 was next year. And we just decided to go after it. We wanted to try something new at 26 Shirts. Obviously, the name Shirts is in our company name, but really what we wanted to do is be able to offer everything Buffalo fandom we can to our fellow fans, whether it's, apparel or experiences, whatever it is. Action figures, we're going to have a Pinto Rana action figure available, very limited amount at the event. So just these kind of, fun things. And anybody who follows me on social media knows I'm a huge comic book nerd, love all those movies and everything. So there's all these conventions that you'll have, like Nickel City Con was just put on a few weeks ago. And, obviously, my goal is to someday get to San Diego Comic Con, but like all those are just like, it's just a bunch of people celebrating something they love. And that is what, Buffalo football fandom is, so just seems like the natural progression of everything doing this.
Yeah, certainly. And it's certainly a valuable thing for Bills fans. It's not, like you said, there are some fan bases that do have fan conventions that get together, but it's definitely a unique thing. And for Bills fans to have the opportunity to do this now each and every year, it's really a great thing that you guys do, and really happy to be a part of it. Now, before we tell the people how they can get involved, why don't you give your opinion on the team this year? How do you see the Bills sitting right now at this point of the offseason? Training camp right around the corner. A lot of new additions. A lot needs to kind of go right for the Bills this year, but they still do have the MVP reigning quarterback. So I think he can cover up a lot of warts and maybe cover up some growing pains that they may endure at the beginning of the year. But how are you seeing things for the Bills this year?
I'm scared because I'm really optimistic about this team. They've come so close, every single year. It seems, and last year, the closest they've come since 2020. Such a strong contender in the playoffs every year, but it feels like towards the end of the season, it's the defense that's been kind of like, not really rising to the occasion in terms of what they need in January games. And they went hard after it this year, didn't they? Just the draft was like defense. So it was like almost like a fan was running that draft. It felt like at some point, just like the overemphasis, like in fantasy, sometimes I'll go too hard after one position or whatever like that. But they just went so hard after the defense. And then you look at, the signings that they had and everything with Ogunjobi and Hoyt and obviously Joey Bosa. So I'm excited, and the upgrades at receiver that they've put in as well too. I don't think there's a lot of arguing saying that the receiver room is stronger now than it was this point last year. So I don't know. I'm really bullish on the Bill. I am every year, but like from a rational perspective, I'm pretty bullish on this team.
Yeah, you're not the only one. I've been seeing Super Bowl expectations flying around for the past several weeks. So, Del, I'd like to thank you for joining me. Why don't you tell the people how they can get involved in Mafia Con. Are tickets still available? Autograph tickets still available? Where can they find those? If so, how do they get involved? And if they want to get even more involved, become a vendor at the site next year, how would they get involved in that as well?
Yeah, so BuffaloMafiaCon.com is the place to get your tickets. There are limited amount. There are still some remaining, but there's a limited amount, so I would not wait on that. But and then obviously the autograph tickets as well too. And all things being equal, we should have tickets at the door. You don't ever want to plan on that because there is limited spacing, but we should have some. But get them now. And if you want to be a vendor next year, last year I think it was this year, I think in May, we put out the call for vendors and everything. So we'll have an application form and everything. And we do try to curate, like I said earlier, we want to make sure it's a diverse offering of all different areas of the fandom. But BuffaloMafiaCon.com. And we're hoping to see everybody there.
All right. Good stuff, Dylan. I will see you there next Saturday. Derek Kramer and Zach Jones from WGR joining me. So looking forward to it. Thank you for joining me, my friend.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care. Go Bills.
All right. Matt is correct. Get them tickets for Mafia Con. It's going to be an exciting time with Bills players, Bills super fans, everybody coming together, a bunch of podcasters as well. Hope to see Matt out there. I believe his crew, Do Champions, is broadcasting as well. So excited to see what Bills Mafia Con, I think it's just Mafia Con. I don't know if they can do the Bills Mafia Con, has to offer. But let's talk to our next guest more about Mafia Con. That is Zach Sheldon of Trainwreck Sports. All right. Here with Trainwreck Sports Maniac, Zach Sheldon, making Mafia Con bigger and better this year, and a lot more involved with Mafia Con this year, I think. Maybe some refining here and there, a different site. So why don't you tell the people what you have done, you and Dell working alongside one another have done to make Mafia Con bigger and better than it was a year ago?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was an amazing debut last year, obviously. I mean, you could see the craziness, you could see the passion there, and I think that's what made it pretty easy to try and, decide on the changes, the augmentations that we wanted to make for year two. So we'll be going to Seneca One Tower for the event space, which is an awesome venue. Obviously, Seneca One Tower, one of the most imposing buildings, if not the most imposing building in Buffalo. So it'll be awesome to have it in that lobby. And last year, so again, if there's some areas of it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we had a ton of vendors last year. I think it was into like the high teens, low 20s for vendors. I believe there's going to be 30 plus vendors there this year at Mafia Con. So a wide array of your favorite Buffalo football products, some of your merchandise that you love so much. All those vendors will be there for you to kind of check out in person. Obviously, the internet is the way we buy everything nowadays, but this is kind of like a perfect Christmas Eve of Bills season, Buffalo football season, to come take advantage of that. So super excited about the vendors. Then last year, you might remember there were some presentations done with some speakings, etc. Podcasts were recorded. So this year, it's just going to be a little bit more centralized. We will have a main stage for the podcasts with full mic setup, PA and everything. So anyone who wants to come kind of enjoy, whether it's, do media, I believe you'll be there as well, Mr. Brasky. Yeah. We got the Cover One crew. We got Overreaction. Got a lot of your favorites coming to Mafia Con. So super excited. And I think for me, it was kind of ended up that everyone was kind of doing their podcasts in their own area last year, which was awesome because it was kind of feeling it out, but having them all on the same stage, I think going to be able to get those clips and those shots of everyone in the same environment. And it's cool. Typically you see these podcasters on your screen. You'll be able to come to Mafia Con on July 19th and see them in person. So a lot of augmentations. And we haven't even talked about the theater and all that stuff, Brasky.
Yeah, and what I wanted to dive into is the autograph signing. I know you deal a lot with TSC, and they do a great job bringing Bills players to the Bills fans. And why don't you tell the people what you get out of that autograph signing ticket that is available on Mafia Con? BuffaloMafiaCon.com is the website. What do you get out of that autograph signing ticket? How much of an interaction do you get with the player? How many items could you have autographed? What are kind of what's the structure around the autograph signing based on your experience and what you're expecting at Mafia Con this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to an array of autograph signings. Like we were at Fanatics Fest last month. We've seen a bunch done with TSE, like you said, and we've also seen some that are, done at local venues. Like sometimes they're done at pizzerias or grocery stores and everything like that. What I would say is that TSE Buffalo seems, from my experience, to have things just so well organized and everything kind of laid out in a way. So these are autograph, lines and autograph sessions or whatever. But truly, to me, with your ticket for that one autograph, and I believe that's for, you can get a helmet signed, you can get a jersey signed, you can get whatever you want signed. You obviously want to make sure what it says on your ticket. But one autograph is one autograph as far as the ticket's concerned. But to me, the cooler thing is that with the way that TSE tends to manage it and tends to keep the line moving, managing from what I've seen, allows for, like you said, kind of like a little bit more of a meet and greet vibe with the player. So when you come up to get that autograph, obviously you're getting the autograph on the item, you're, saying hello or whatever, but you do get, probably, I would say, 4 to 6 lines of dialogue back and forth. You get to see, how they're doing. And obviously, let's face it, these players, for the most part, they're rookies or they're second-year guys like Cole Bishop and Ray Davis. So I think it's safe to say that there is still a budding excitement amongst these players for the upcoming season. So I think you're going to see that when you meet them, when you get the autographs at Mafia Con. So looking super excited about that aspect of it, definitely. I mean, TSE, again, I know they're a partner, so I'm not going anything, everyone knows that or whatever, but there's a reason that they've been able to kind of elevate themselves to that spot in the Buffalo sphere, and that's because they tend to run these well and they tend to manage them well. So super excited about the TSE signings at Mafia Con July 19th.
Yeah, they definitely do a great job. And you're right. I think having the players early in their career, they're still excited to get out there and meet the fans.
Yeah.
Sometimes the veterans, it can get a little old for them. So good to have the bright faces.
Listen, I'm not throwing any shade here, but 2018, 2019, Josh Allen was very accessible. If you saw him in person, if you saw him in those years, he would take a photo, he would do whatever. When they become superstars and they become vets, things do change. And again, it's part of it is because of the experiences they undergo personally for, fans and everything like that. But yes, no doubt, first, second-year players, you're seeing that excitement, you're seeing that budding enthusiasm. They can't wait for training camp, and you're getting that vibe at Mafia Con.
How about food and drink? I know that's probably a big thing on people's mind. I believe fully stocked bar and plenty of food as well. Do you know what's on tap in terms of refreshments?
Yeah, so there will be no shortage there. Let's face it. We know this is a Buffalo gathering. If we went in without a food and a drink plan, we would be in trouble. So yeah, you're going to have full Seneca One furnishings. As far as I know, the entire meal center there, the catering dining hall will be open with options for our Mafia Con attendees. And then of course you want to have a little beverage or whatever. There's tons of options along there. And then we are working, I believe other half brewing in the Seneca One tower area there will also be open. So there, you might want to be, you might be at the event for 2 or 3 hours. You might want to pop out just for some fresh air and, a 20-minute break. Perfect spot to do that another half. And again, if not that, you can do it right in the building there at Seneca One at the catering area and at their amazing, I think it's the Sopranos piano bar. I've been told, but I don't want to misbrand. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. But yeah, it's a great, awesome vibe in there. If you've never been in Seneca One, amazing vibe. You're going to love seeing it for the first time. If you have been, you're going to be amazed at how we stretch the venue and kind of manipulate it to accommodate all these awesome forces of Mafia Con.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm really looking. Go ahead.
One more real quick. So we will have a main event type setting with Del Reed recording his Mafia Family Ties podcast at the end. We are working on some quote unquote special guests for that. I think we're going to roll out that promo as it comes, but super excited about that. And I promise these are names. We are not going to bring in someone with, listen, I'm not getting involved unless we were bringing in names. And speaking of being involved, real quick, because I know we mentioned Trainwreck Sports, a lot of the legwork and everything is also being done by our team here at Bruckman Media. So super excited. They work locally with a number of companies, very like a lot of event experience, a lot of know-how in the area for these type of things. There's sometimes when I'm involved in an event, I just want to go, and I think you're similar to me. Like let's go live, like let's run it, let's do this. They're much more into the planning and the logistics of it, and that's why I think that you'll always get improvement from year 1 to year 2 of an event, but we're trying to improve literally everything across the board, and that's definitely something we're excited about.
And it sounds like you're well on track to doing so. I can't wait to be there. 2:45 p.m. myself, and then WGR's Derek Kramer and Zach Jones joining me. So should be a fun time on the stage there. And before you get out of here, why don't you give your opinion on the Bills? What do you see from this team at this point of the offseason, training camp, right around the corner? There's a lot undetermined in terms of these new pieces, how they fit in, but you make the AFC Championship game last year. You have the MVP quarterback. It seems like they're on track for some more high expectations this year for the public.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think as a Bills fan or Buffalo football fan, whatever you want to say, it's very tempting to be like, well, I'll just clock in, once we get to the divisional or once we, see how it's not. It's every down. It's every move. You wonder, what could have been done if like an Amari Cooper was brought along like earlier last year, things like that. And again, they didn't necessarily struggle. The offense did or whatever, but what would have happened, things like that. So to me, it's just kind of enjoying the ride. I think there is a little fan craziness probably happening right about now because there's not really anything to analyze. Like the articles I'm expecting for the next 2 weeks are like, these are the stories I'll be most focused on, or like craziest camp predictions. But like it's such a balance because you have to pay, you as a fan, you want to pay attention and you care every day to all this stuff. But as knowing like the journey that this team has been on the last 3 to 5 years, I think you also have to take a step back and be like, and I hate to use this because it is kind of like their word, right? Like you have to look at it as part of the process because last year, like I this is the point I've been making since it ended. Nobody said that Mac Hollins was going to be like the lead receiver at this time last year. Or nobody said that like he's going to be a fan favorite when he signs with like New England after the season. So just let things happen and enjoy them. It's still okay to get passionate and crazy and look at everything. And that's what I do. Obviously, I'm expecting. I mean, I look at last year. Why can't Josh Allen be better this year? I mean, there's no reason for him to be worse. He should realistically have similar weapons, if not a little bit better. I think you get a bounce back year from Dalton Kincaid for sure. I want to go on the record. I think that he goes back to people forget that the expectations for Kincaid last year was like a floor of like 80, 850. Like it really was. So like,
I was picking 100 and I think 1,200.
I'm telling you, if we can get, like I said, 80, 850 out of Kincaid this year, are you telling me that we're not feeling outstanding about this offense? So let's just kind of pick up the pieces where we got, best apply them. And I think Coach Joe Brady is the perfect guy to do that. I think that he gets everyone involved. Everybody eats is like a fun thing to say or whatever, but it's truly whoever the best option is on that play is going to get the ball. So super excited. I do think there's a chance Josh Allen can repeat his MVP, but ultimately how far this team will go is if this defense can hit its stride come December, January. I think we've seen it in past years. Like I think back to last year's playoffs, like, did we really beat Baltimore or did Baltimore like kind of beat themselves and then ran out of time? I'm tough on the Bills because I love them so much. So that's the way I look at it. The defense just has to be peaking, and that involves guys like Rousseau, Oliver, etc., being healthy. Like that's key. Like you can't be getting back a Milano a couple weeks before the playoffs and be like, let's hope our defense is the absolute best it can be. You got to get a little injury luck. I think they've been injury unlucky the last 3 years. The beginning part of the McDermott administration, they were very lucky with injuries. I think the last 3 years they've been very unlucky, and I'm hoping that that'll bounce back this year.
And you have the MVP quarterback. You have that great offensive line, and we're going to touch on it later in this episode with Jerry Ostroski from the Overreaction Pod.
Shout out Jerry O.
And get his thoughts on the offensive line. And I think that's another point of emphasis for them this year. If that group can remain healthy as it has these past few years, it really doesn't matter who's running behind it. James Cook, all the talk has been about James Cook this offseason, but you have a Ray Davis who will be at Mafia Con. You do have Ty Johnson. When you have that offensive line and, of course, the quarterback, a lot of good things can happen. But, Zach, I'd like to thank you for joining me here on the pod, and we will see you next weekend at
Buffalo
Mafia Con.
debut. Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Hope to see everyone at Mafia Con July 19th. And if not there, of course, at training camp, come up and say what up to me and Alex.
All right. Sounds good. Have a great day, my friend.
Toodles.
All right. I'd like to thank Maniac. Still working out the kinks here on Buffalo pregame. Some of these transitions have got the best of me today. But Maniac, good content as always. And we appreciate his work on Mafia Con. It really seems like this year is going to be bigger and better as they've wanted to build it. So I'm excited to get out there next Saturday, July 19th. Myself, Derek Kramer, Zach Jones, 2:45 p.m. at Seneca 1. But I want to leave you with this, kind of my post-game thoughts here. This year's training camp for the Bills, while there are not many starting jobs to be had, this is as critical of a training camp as I think they've had in recent years. Obviously, last year critical, this year equally as critical, with so many spots left open in terms of depth roles. And you look at Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, can they take a step forward? Can this young defensive line come together? Can the secondary plug some holes left behind from some changes made throughout the offseason? So there's a lot of questions left to be answered, and they will begin to be answered at training camp. So thank you for tuning in to Buffalo Pregame. We appreciate Jerry, Dell, and Zach for joining us, and we will see you next time.